Hi, my name is Cheyenne Radowski, and this is my presentation on my paper, Closing the Gap Between Minority Subgroup Students and Their Non-Minority Counterparts. Okay, our first slide is Identify the Problem. In many public schools, students are falling through the achievement gap in reading in areas like reading and math, meaning they can't keep up with their non-minority peers. This is especially a problem in rural areas like Excel, Alabama, where a majority of the students in the county had a gap that needed to be closed with their minority students. Excel Public School is a Title I school, and around 60% of the population receives free and reduced lunch. Many of the minority students who attend Excel, such as the African American and special education population, come from low socioeconomic statuses. The purpose of this proposal is to investigate if students who receive a more specialized instruction and who are monitored over a year will perform better on state achievement tests to close the gap. So this is data from Excel High School, and I'll talk more about it on the next slide. So I'm going to give you a second to look at it, and my little webcam is covering up a little piece of the second chart. Okay. So the first chart on the previous slide shows Excel special education population, and the second chart shows the Scantron scores from Excel from 2018. And then the chart to the right of this slide shows the subgroups where the achievement gap is the greatest and the lowest scores. The data provided from Excel Public Schools Alabama Continuous Improvement Plan and data from Rambo Hernandez, Peters, and Plucker study both show that the African American subgroup fall behind in achievement testing, and all of this data was taken from Excel's ACIP plan. So, action plan, the sampling method and description. The sample method will consist of students enrolled in Excel public schools in 2nd through 10th grade. Students in grade 3rd through 8 are tested using the state-required assessments, and students in the 10th grade take the pre-ACT test. Students in grades 2nd and 9th they're not tested, however they still will receive RTI and specialized instructions to help prepare them for the test in the upcoming year. Students in the 2nd and 9th grade will still be studied using their progress monitoring scores. The research will be conducted through a quantitative study by using results from state assessments for grades 3rd through 8th, along with the pre-ACT scores in grades 10. It is encouraged and anticipated that every student's score rise due to the specialized instruction in RTI. However, the study will primarily focus on those scores of the minority populations in comparison with their non-minority peers. Minority subgroups will have their scores on assessments and progress monitoring compared to their non-minority counterparts to see if interventions that are in place are working and help raise their test scores. Both of these exams cover reading and math, and in some grades they cover science, so the RTI as well as the other specialized instructions will be covering reading, math, science, and a few other electives. Faculty meetings will be held monthly to ensure that these interventions in place are working correctly towards raising the minority subgroup test scores. So, action plan, instrumentation and collaborative efforts. Participants in the study will either take the state testing, the pre-ACT test, or have their progress monitoring scores examined in order to see if the interventions put in place to raise their scores are working. So that all of the students in grades 2nd through 10 are receiving some sort of RTI based on the students' weaknesses and strengths. Due to the specialized instruction, students should see benefits from this, such as raised classroom scores, small group instruction, and higher test scores. Teacher, administration, testing specialists, and special education teachers will work together to ensure the plan is in place and is helping raise student test scores. Monthly faculty meetings will be in place to discuss the measures and if they're working and if changes are needed. Special education teachers will also provide more inclusion time in the classroom and help general education teachers reteach any core foundations. Action plan, procedures, and internal-external validity. There is a possibility that students could be absent during the testing window, and this could cause lower scores for the population as a whole. Students who withdraw or transfer during the school year could also cause an interference with accurate test scores. Another way that could cause limitations of this research is teachers who have to take a leave of absence and have a long-term fill-in sub. This could interfere drastically with student achievement scores. The study will go for approximately 3 years. So again, absenteeism and student transfers could drastically affect this study. And then another possible effect, since we are in the South, is hurricanes causing school closures. And then more recently, COVID-19. Taking these threats into account will help faculty adjust interventions as needed to aid the legitimacy of this research. Considerations: confidentiality, special populations, RIB, and other. The participants of this study should have no negative benefits, as each student who takes this test or is participating in progress monitoring will be receiving some sort of specialized instruction. Being that all students are being serviced, there should be no hindrance with special education and confidentiality, as special education teachers will continue to service their students and abide by those confidentiality laws. And then parents of students in grades 2nd through 10th will receive a letter explaining RTI and how progress monitoring will be taking place and the benefits, so including specialized instruction, raised classroom scores, and hopefully the closing the achievement gap. The present results. So in a book by Majors, he describes that when RTI is implemented correctly, it reduces the number of students who need special education services. This is the outcome that Excel is trying to achieve. Excel, like many other public schools, have already implemented RTI on a daily basis. However, if Excel implements RTI not only to subgroups that are lacking, but also to students who need to raise their achievement scores to the next quadrant, closing the gap might become more achievable. If students who raise this more specialized instruction score better and it results in the gap closing, then Excel Public School could continue to implement this in its regular daily academic instruction. If the data does not yield the desired results, then Excel would need to hold another ACIP meeting to determine a new plan of action to improve achievement scores between the minority and special education subgroups. And reflection. So after making this presentation and rereading my paper, I would like to have researched more on how to successfully implement RTI and specialized instruction in an online setting due to COVID-19. Our school district just decided to go virtual, so the online setting is really important right now. I would be interested in learning if more resources were provided to these specific groups of students, such as the ability to have access to online resources at home. How would this affect the achievement gap? Since we're in a rural area, a lot of people don't have good internet access or internet access at all. And so now the county, since we decided to go virtual, is having to provide these resources to students. So we will see one side of it, but since we're not going to be in the actual school building, we won't get the full effect. And then I would also like to include research on the achievement gaps in rural areas versus urban areas, because I would like to see if there's a correlation between achievement gaps being larger in rural areas because of the lack of resources than the urban areas where more resources are available. And then these are my references I used for the paper and throughout this slideshow. Thank you.